We're going to review today sourcing, what we need to do when we find a document or an article and determining whether or not this article is something that we should use for our research for finding out more information that is accurate. So before you read your document, after you've done your search and you're looking through all the results from your search engine and you click on that link, you want to ask these questions. Number one, who wrote this? If you can identify the author easily and you can find out when they wrote it and why they wrote it and where it was written and identify the author's perspective, you're probably going to be able to determine whether or not this is a reliable source or not. So you do want to go through and say, who wrote this? If you can identify who wrote it, identify the company that posted it or published it, or if there is an editor that put this on the internet. The next question is, why was it written? What was the reasoning for the author to write this? Was it a major historical event that they're writing about? Was it something that they personally experienced? Did they write this because it's their job to write it? There's a whole bunch of questions we could ask about why was it written, and we should be able to identify this. If we can identify why it was written, then we can identify whether or not this source is reliable. The next two questions I'm going to blend together. The questions of when was it written and where was it written. Those are pretty important questions to consider. Maybe not as important as who and why, but definitely something to consider is, was this written about the time of the event, or was this written way after the event? If it was written about the time of the event that you've found information on, then you can say, well, it might be a first person or primary source account. If it's written well after the event, then they might have additional perspective and understand the outcomes following the event. Where it was written, again, can tell us whether or not this person experienced this firsthand. For example, if it's the 9/11 terrorist attacks is what the article is about, and the author wrote this in October of 2001 from Watford City, North Dakota, it's going to tell us that it's probably not a first-person account, but more of the feelings of what people were thinking about the terrorist attacks in North Dakota instead of New York. What is the author's perspective? Is the author trying to inform? Is the author trying to persuade? Is the author criticizing? We need to understand what the perspective of the author is in creating this document. And once you identify that, you can then go on to the next question. The last question we need to think about when sourcing out a document is this document reliable? If you can say yes, then you need to ask yourself why. What makes this a reliable document? If you say no, you don't think this is reliable, before you discard it, ask yourself why not? What makes this document unreliable? Because once you can determine either why it's reliable or why it's not, it'll help you to do the same process the next time you need to source a document. And that's document sourcing for U.S. history class.